Welcome back to the Broken Collective. I have my mom here.
Hi. I'm Jen.
This is going to be another heavy episode. You'll like it, though. You'll get a lot from it. I know you will. So, who are you?
I'm Jennifer Steglich. I'm Keone and Kainoa's mom.
So, let's just start with your childhood. Where did you grow up? Where did you come from? Who are your mom? Who are your dad?
I came from my mom and dad. And I live in Billings, born and raised pretty much. We lived in Laurel for the first, maybe, I think I was 2 when we moved to Billings, and then lived here ever since.
So you were born in Billings or born in Laurel?
I was born in Billings, but we lived in Laurel for 2 years before we moved to Billings.
Okay. And then, what was your childhood like?
I had a pretty good childhood. I was raised by Christian parents and in a loving home. And I did have some setbacks in elementary and then in junior high. But for the most part, I think they were pretty good.
Good. What do you remember when you met Jesus?
I think I was pretty small. I'm not sure exactly how old I was. I went and told my mom that I wanted to ask Jesus into my stomach.
That's great. Okay, so grew up in a loving, faith-based home. Seemed to be okay until the formative years of middle school and high school. What was the dynamic in your family? How did you guys interact with each other when you were littler?
When we were younger, me and my sister used to fight a lot. And we would get in trouble, so we would have to pick up dog poop. That was our punishment, and so we didn't want to fight very much. We couldn't fight. We weren't allowed to hit. We weren't allowed to call names. Even funny names like Dodo Bird or anything like that, we were never allowed to call names, which I can appreciate now. But a lot of people weren't raised that way, and they kind of don't understand when you get called a name and you're not used to being called anything, and some people grow up with that. But
Yeah. So would you say you felt that you were a little bit secluded or sheltered growing up?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so was there anything in elementary school that really formed or was a pivotal moment for you, or was that mostly in junior high and high school?
I had the hives. I was allergic to everything, so I was out of school a lot. And then I ended up getting held back in the 3rd grade. That was weird. Everyone's, why are you still here? Wondering why you're in their classroom. But it worked out okay. I don't know how old I was, but a neighbor boy raped me in our fort. My fort that we had over at my dad's work. He used to own Arrowhead Transportation, a freight company, and there was a field out there that we kind of took as our own little play haven we had, and I wanted to go show him our playhouse, and yeah, that happened. And I didn't remember much of it until I got into my 30s. I started remembering more, and it's kind of rearing its ugly head again.
Yeah.
I'm realizing now that I avoided a lot of emotions. I have avoided emotions in my life, having bipolar, and I've been diagnosed with bipolar before they changed these things.
I remember. They changed them a lot.
Bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar subtype, anxiety, and OCD. And now it's bipolar, ADHD, possibly PTSD, anxiety, and OCD. Did you catch all that?
Yes.
I'm a hot mess.
Aren't we all? Nobody's perfect. So that was a very traumatizing time in your life. But from the sounds of it, you, didn't address it, probably didn't have the language to address it.
I guess what happened was I went to a doctor's visit, and the doctor called my mom out into the hallway and asked if there had been anything going on or anything like that, because I was not normal down there. And so she asked me, and I told her. And I begged them not to do anything about it because I was so embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know. And yeah.
So, were you able to suppress that when you went into middle school and high school, or was that something that was ever present but you got used to?
I pushed it away as hard and as far as I could from my mind, and just pretending that nothing happened. I remember my parents would go have coffee and donuts in evening time sometimes, and I remember after that happened, we went to the donut shop, and this is going to date me, but a payphone outside. And they used to have a bar that the phone book was attached to, and I was pretending like nothing happened, hanging upside down from the payphone bar.
Okay, so then that was around what age?
I think I was 8 or 9,
So 4th or 5th?
somewhere around there.
Okay.
Between 3rd and 4th, I think, or something.
Okay. So then going into middle school, what was that transition for you from elementary to middle?
So elementary school, I was a little more popular because I was older, and then we went into junior high, and I think that part of what happened to me also caused me to be maybe a little promiscuous. And so in junior high, I was dealing with a little bit of that. I never went and had sex with a bunch of boys or nothing, but I would flirt. And if you're not watching this, I have blonde hair. It's purple now, but when I was younger, I had blonde hair, light blonde hair. And the Mexican girls there did not like me. And the boys would do things like holding the back of my skirt up in front of the class and take a pencil and run it up my butt crack and say, "Rip." And so there was that kind of stuff going on. And then the girls didn't like me, and one of them punched me at the bus stop, and I blacked out and went back to the school crying. And from that day on, my dad sent me to school with a roll of pennies and my sharp ring that didn't have a gem in it so that I could defend myself. I didn't know 2 things about defending myself. But I got out of that school, luckily, and because I was having hives at night, be covered in hives because of the stress and anxiety I was going through. So I went to a different school, and that got better as far as I didn't have people punching me or picking on me or sexually abusing me in front of the class or whatever you want to call it. But I got into more drinking, teenage drinking. And I remember one night my best friend called my dad and had him come get me because I was going to go home with a boy. And I hated her for that. I don't hate her now, obviously. And I see why she did that. But I told my dad to F off that night, and that didn't go over very well.
I don't imagine so.
Not so much.
So that was 7th grade, 8th grade, and then because you were drinking and understanding what your body does in middle school, did that carry in through high school, or was there something that shifted that?
I became a freshman, and I got a job my 8th grade year, and my first job at Little Caesars Pizza. From then on, I worked my tail off and got myself a nice vehicle, and so I put my wanting to get out and just go do something into work. And My freshman year, I was a schoolgirl. Didn't drink or knew nothing. And then I met my boyfriend, my high school boyfriend. And we started drinking again. And that led to just stupid stuff. Losing my virginity on purpose. And yeah, just the kind of crazy stuff kids do when they're in high school. And they're being stupid.
Yeah. So, did you still work during that? Did you stop working?
I worked all the way through college and then got a job teaching at Boyd School.
Okay. But the activities in high school didn't reduce your working hours. It wasn't infiltrating your life that much where you're like, all I want to do is party, party, party.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, not at all. It would be like Friday night and maybe Saturday or something. But it wasn't like heavy partying or anything like that. Just we'd go out with some friends and have some drinks.
Yeah. And then, okay, were there any significant moments in high school? Any major life events in high school? Turning points?
Not too much that I can think of. Besides, my boyfriend at the time was manipulative and controlling. And I broke up with him I think it was my senior year, and started going to college. So, yeah.
Nice. How was college?
Uneventful. Actually, it was eventful. It was uneventful as far as school goes. I just did my work and did what I needed to do. But I got pregnant with you, and you came early, 3 months early.
Yeah.
So I had to stop my classes, and they all passed me for that semester. It was close to the end of the semester. So they all passed me, but then I quit working, quit going to school, and just took care of you. Went back a little bit later.
So when was I conceived and when was the marriage?
Oh yeah, there's all that too. Your dad and I got married in 97, May of 97, and you were born in 99. And yeah, he worked at JB's. I met him at JB's. He was the cook and I was a waitress. And we had some pretty good years together.
So you're going through college. What year does the marriage happen? Was that while you were in school?
That was while I was in college.
Okay, and you were on your... Did you finish 2 years of school? 3 years of school?
I think I was like only a sophomore when you were born.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
So go through 2 years of school, get married, have a kid, take care of the kid. Did you go back to school after that?
I can't exactly remember all the years. I did have to go back after a while. I just remember that. After I had you, I went back after a while, but I don't know how long it was.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you got a degree because you were a teacher.
Yeah, I got an elementary degree and an early childhood minor.
Nice. So then you were teaching at Boyd. What drew you to Boyd? What made you want to teach there instead of a public
job.
school?
I couldn't find. It was my first year out of school, and I was looking for a job throughout the summer and didn't find one, and finally there was an opening in Boyd. And so I went out there. Boyd's like 40 miles from here, I think. And so I went out there and met with the superintendent, or not the superintendent, the principal lady or something, I don't know. I met with her and got hired on and taught kindergarten, first, second, third in the morning, and then the afternoons, first through eighth. That was the first year, I think. And then the second year, the other teacher was there all day.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 teachers in a 2-room schoolhouse. So we did several different lesson plans for each grade that they were in. And there was the PE teacher and the librarian, and we got to watch calves being born at recess. It was all sorts of neat stuff that I didn't get to experience myself as from living in town.
Yeah. I remember the vivid memory that sticks up in my head from Boyd. There was a little kid, he must have been in like second or third grade. He picked his nose and ate it. And I remember calling him out in class, like, that's disgusting.
Did you really do that?
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
remember
gross.
That's so funny.
Then I remember someone had something and someone had to run to a medicine cabinet, and it was weird. But yeah, those kids were different.
Yeah.
Very mean, actually. So, first question, did you enjoy teaching and educating that vast of an age group?
I did. I enjoyed just being out there with all of them, and it was definitely different, but it was worth it. It was good. There was one boy that we went rounds, but for the most part, the rest of them were pretty good.
Yeah.
No, there was a couple, but anyway.
Okay, so you enjoyed teaching that sector of kids, that many kids. I guess it wasn't a lot because it was
There was like 14 at the most
yeah. Okay.
throughout both grades.
So what was the turning point? Because from what I can remember, I was super young. You were teaching 1 year and then you weren't.
Okay, so I taught 2 years, and then I decided not to renew. And I think that at that point, they were shifting to Joliet School. I'm not really sure if there was even a position available after when I left. But I started working at Tori's Cafe, and the owner there was awesome, Josie. And she always treated me kind, and my bipolar got worse, and I started hearing my name being called, and nobody was calling my name. I'm like, did you call me? No, did you call me? And I was struggling that way, and I remember a customer telling Josie that I was the worst waitress he's ever had. And I messed up his huevos rancheros.
Wow.
Or I think I gave him huevos rancheros when he wanted something else. I don't remember, but Josie asked me, have you ever thought of getting disability for your mental illness? And I was like, not really. She's, maybe you should do that. And she let me go, but she was kind about it. And I will thank her. I will be ever grateful for her. Because I did. I applied for disability. I didn't get it at first. It took a couple years, I think, or a year. I'm not sure exactly. But I got disability and was able to stay home then. I didn't have to work.
So what do you think there was a stressor in that time that made the bipolar symptoms more prevalent? Because from a little bit of research, it seems that there's either they present at a younger age or there's some sort of event midlife that just is, oh yeah, now I'm going to show up and I'm going to ruin your life.
Ah, okay. So when did it show up? Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, it did. Was that moment with the dude at the table, was that like a point where you noticed it, or was it a gradual, like you heard one voice and then it got worse and looked like?
I guess it started when your dad and I were living out in Shepherd, and basically I was having auditory hallucinations telling me to smother my face in the cat box. That's how I should commit suicide, just do that. And I went out and told your dad about it, and in the meantime I was gathering up everything that was black in the house because I thought it was evil. And also the neighbor lady downstairs said that the guy that lived in our apartment left in the middle of the night because of evil spirits.
To pause real
Goosebumps.
quick,
Yeah.
that house definitely looked haunted. Like yeah, I don't doubt that there were things at play that were not all you, for sure.
Yeah, so that night we went to my parents' house and stayed over there. And the next morning, my sister took me into Billings Clinic Hospital, and I got admitted and was diagnosed 5 days later with bipolar.
And was that before the Tories?
That was
thing?
before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember them too. I remember walking in there in my cowboy boots and my Wrangler jeans, and as soon as she saw me, she said, "I've prayed for you. I still pray for you."
Who said that?
Josie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Josie left, even her family, "We prayed for you when you were little. We still pray for you. Come eat, come eat."
Yeah.
Yeah. And a little ping pong machine in the corner, and a little horsey, and
Yeah, there's
the
lots of
chili
fun stuff.
verde. I can't go to a Mexican restaurant and not have that now. But okay, that happened in the house. Did you guys go back to that house, or did you move from that point on?
We moved from that point on. We moved to a little condo that our friends owned and were living afar, so they were renting it out. So we just rented that from them for, I don't know if it was a whole year or not. And then they needed to sell. So then we moved in with your girl,
Okay.
Charlotte.
Where did the trailer in Lockwood come into play?
After we were living at Grandma Charlotte's house while we were trying to get that disability, and we got the disability, and I got back pay. So that's how we put a down payment on the trailer
Okay.
and got into it.
And then what happened with that?
You mean with the end of it?
Yeah, because growing up, I only remember we lived in Grandma Charlotte's house, the other trailer, and that was it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess the trailer in Lockwood too. We were living there in Lockwood when you were born, and then we moved in with Charlotte. I'm getting all confused. Anyway, so we lived in Cherry Creek, and we had Kainoa, and he was, I don't even know how old you guys were when I decided I wanted a divorce.
This is going to sound terrible, but which time?
That's true. Yeah, your dad left quite a few times and came back.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I was unfaithful to your dad, and you know that now, but started dating before we were divorced completely. And I know that wasn't the right thing to do, and it hurt a lot of people. But I think that if I didn't have that someone, I wouldn't have left. And I can't think of my future. Your dad and I didn't communicate about anything. I couldn't even get a grocery list to go to the store. And we tried counseling. Let's see.
Okay, can we back up?
Yeah.
Okay. You had this experience in this house in Shepherd, went to the psychiatric facility, got diagnosed, were released, moved, and I'm just skipping points, released to back to life. You moved into a trailer, or a condo, then a trailer, then you were at my grandma's.
Condo, grandma, trailer.
No, not the
Oh, okay.
Cherry Creek, the one
Okay.
in Lockwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what was it like living that close to your mother-in-law?
It could be a struggle sometimes just because she liked to yell and call names and stuff I wasn't used to. But I love that woman to death. Even to this day, I would take her to the doctor's appointments and we'd go have lunch, and I took care of her and she took care of us.
Yep.
And I still remember her, and I'll never forget her. She's quite the character.
Yeah. She loved the strawberry Italian cream sodas from Mountain Mud.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And She slept with a knife under her pillow.
She did?
Yeah, I was playing around on her bed, and I said, "What's this?"
Oh.
She opens it. She goes, "This is what happens when someone breaks into my house.
Oh.
They better be ready." So she was always just a firecracker.
I remember one day you were sitting at the head of the table, and she said, "That's not your seat. I don't see your name on it." So the next day, I think it was, you wrote your name on it in black permanent marker. And then she couldn't say, you couldn't sit there. No, that was just funny.
So after you lived with Grandma, you moved into the trailer, and I was there I think I was 8 when we moved there.
I think you're right, yeah. You were in first grade. No, you went to kindergarten at Bench, and then you went to first grade.
I went to kindergarten at Boulder, went to first grade at Bench,
Okay.
and then went to Beartooth because Bench was full.
Oh, okay.
So we moved at the end of my kindergarten, like at the beginning of my kindergarten summer, because I went to first grade in the Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, was there a different outlook on that? Did you see more independence in that? Did you see more finally like feeling of a family in that because you had a place of your own? What was that like?
It was just different just because we didn't have Charlotte and Josh there. I always felt like you guys we were a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did Eastgate come into the picture? How did that come about?
I started going to Eastgate Wesleyan Church when you were in my tummy.
Okay.
And we went there until that happened.
Do you remember having a relationship with a church or with Jesus before then?
Yes. I don't know that I didn't really say do devotions yeah, I did. I remember doing devotions at your grandma's house in the backyard. But that's when we got serious about going to church, is when we went up there.
Okay. And family had went there previously, right?
Yeah, my mom was the one that told us about it, so we got to go to church with my mom too.
Okay. And did you know of church or go to a church before that?
We got married at Faith Chapel, and I think we went there for a little while, but not like we did at Eastgate.
Okay. So I guess walking through new house, same church, newish relationship, what were your experiences? I guess, how did things change? Because it's a drastic change from 1 bedroom for 3 people to 3 bedrooms with an empty bedroom. Like, how did things change? What was the dynamic? Because it felt as though we were not forced, but you were confined to a space.
Yeah.
And therefore, because you were in a space together, you had to interact a little bit differently. You had to interact more to an extent. But now that you have a house where there's 3 bedrooms, 3 people, how did that dynamic shift come about? I'm just curious to know your experience in that and what your outlook was and what you were going through in those times.
That we lived there?
Yeah, from very first day move in to whatever you remember after that.
I remember Christmas times we would decorate the tree, and we would have hot chocolate and go outside and play in the snow, make snowmen. And I remember the neighbor kids that lived around us. I loved them, and we had them over all the time, and your dad always bought snacks for those kids. All those little kids had snacks because your dad wanted to participate, and that's how he did. And that was a good time for me. I remember having a picture of my couch in the living room, and it was covered in kids. The whole couch was covered in kids, and that's how I loved it. I thrived off of helping those kids and just loving on them, loving the dickens out of them. Sometimes they don't get that at home, so I just love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. And then Kainoa started school, and actually, let's see. I was trying to see. When Kainoa was, didn't he spend his 3rd birthday in Hawaii? And you spent your
12th.
12th. Yeah. And Charlotte got sick enough to where I wasn't able to just care for her myself. So we decided to help her move to Hawaii. So you and me and Kainoa and Grandma Charlotte all headed to Hawaii. And boy, that was a stressful time. Kainoa was he had one of those monkey backpacks and it had a long tail so I could hold on to it. I'm so thankful for that thing in that Denver airport. But we got up there and everything was good. We got Mom settled in. And then I talked to Suzette and Bobby Girl, and we decided that we would try to get me on medication that wasn't so detrimental to my long-term health. So I went off of all my medication and went on all new stuff, and I was a basket case. And I didn't care very well for your brother. He would get in trouble for going in and spilling Auntie Suzette's perfume, expensive perfume, all over. And when I should have been watching him.
My question is, why the change? I had no context of that. Nobody told me any of that.
Oh, they just thought it would be better if I could take something that wasn't, because some psychiatric medications, if you're on them for a long time, they can, I don't know, they're not, I don't know. You take them until you can't take them anymore, and then they quit working and you change them or whatever. But anyway, so that was the presence, was that it would be better for me if I did that. It was the strangest thing, because in Hawaii they have psychiatrists, but you would have to wait there for hours until you could get in. And so anyway, we got me set up with that. It didn't work too well. Things went awry, so I had some trauma from that place. And I'm sure they had trauma from me too. It was rough.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to move more to the mental health side of things.
Okay.
How have you seen mental health impact your life? Good, bad, whatever you want to share. And then what good things?
Let's start with good.
Okay, because I know that in the midst of the pain and grossness, it feels icky in the midst of it. But if you look back, there's usually one little piece of something that you got from it. So I guess walk us through the changes in your mental health and how those had a factor on your life from, let's just say, Grandma's house on.
Grandma Charlotte's house on. I've been quite high functioning to where I could go about my daily tasks and run a household and be a wife and mom. And then there's sometimes when I wasn't feeling as good and I wouldn't be able to do as well in each of those areas. So as time went by, I either did better or I did worse. And according to how I did, that's how we functioned. Your dad would pick up the slack, or I just dealt with it the best way that I knew how.
Okay. And I'm just putting this together, and I could just be like so young I don't remember, but it seems as though the shift from living in one bedroom to living in a house was the start of all the mental health changes. Again, I don't know if I was just too young to see it when I was in the one bedroom or what was going on there, but it seemed like that shift led to a lot of those changes and turbulence, we'll say. Do you think that there's a correlation there?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay. So you did the best you could with what you had and what you knew. I guess giving encouragement, and for people on the show who feel a certain way, can you give us a glimpse, and you don't have to get super detailed, but can you give people a glimpse of some of your thoughts, some of the patterns of thought, just so people can get context? I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one that thinks this, because
Okay.
I think we all think a lot of thoughts, but we think that they're wrong, or we shouldn't think them, so we don't speak about them. So if you could just share that with people so they know that they're not, and I'm not saying, like I said, you don't have to go into your deepest, darkest moments, but just give people a glimpse as to what your journey with mental illness looked like.
So while you were little, I was in and out of the psychiatric unit quite a bit. Usually in the winter times, I would go downhill and end up being in there either for Thanksgiving or Christmas or both. If I went to the meetings and just kept trying, then I could see you. So I knew that I had to go to the meetings each day, and then they would let me off the wing. And that was my highlight, was the meetings with you guys, of course. And so I had a lot of suicidal ideation at that time, and struggled with ways I could kill myself, thinking of ways I could kill myself. Not that I actually was going to carry it through, but just different ways. And that's one time I ended up myself in the hospital because I was wondering if I could actually shoot myself in the head with a rifle. And I tried not shooting it, but just seeing if I could even aim it. And I don't remember if I could or not. That's horrible, but that stuff's real. And if you have someone in your life that's struggling with suicidal ideation, do not take it lightly. Get on it, and get on it now.
Yeah.
I've suffered with mania, and that I'm not going to say that the reason I was manic or the reason I had an affair was because I was manic. I'm not going to blame it on mania, but it played a part. I'd get going so rapidly that I don't think about the consequences. I don't think about what I'm doing. And yeah, I was running kind of rampant there for a while. And I guess after I was told that my husband couldn't love me romantically anymore because of my mental illness, it was a struggle. As far as I needed someone to hold me. I needed someone to talk to me. I needed someone to embrace me when I hugged them. So your dad would sleep on the couch, and he did that since he was little, since Kainoa was little. He fed you and your brother in the middle of the night. He always got up with you guys and fed you. So that's how I remember he never came back to bed with me. And I remember I would leave the door open and he would come in, use the bathroom, and shut the door on the way out. And so I'd open it again, and before long it'd be shut again. And I remember watching Frankie and Grace, and just at night turning it off and then going to bed. I remember putting a hand on my shoulder and just patting it, like that was
Self-soothing.
like someone was there with me.
Yeah.
He was there, he just wasn't there. And I think a lot of what I was missing is why I went elsewhere.
Yeah. That's a lot. You've been through a lot. So my next question, how did you get through that?
Jesus is how I got through it.
Expound, please.
Okay. So, like, I always tried to do some sort of a devotional in the morning time. After you guys went to school, I do devotions and maybe send out a few verses or something. And I just always remember having that journal, being able to pray and do my time with Jesus. And it really helped me and encouraged me and lifted me up. And I was able to do the best with what I have.
Do you think, or can you remember or recall any experiences where it was just a Jesus moment? Like it was a full-on encounter with the Lord that...
Should we talk about the evil spirits? That was an encounter.
That's an encounter that I have troubles with. Dang it. Yes.
What were you referring to?
No, I just, going back to the spirits, the spirit realm. This is going to get really spiritual really quick. So if you're not into this, I get it. But just hold on. You can think of it like The Conjuring if you want, if that makes you feel better. I've always had a fear of that because I could feel it. I'd walk by Kainoa's room and it's just, I know something's in there. And I've always had a fear that something is going to present itself like it did to my cousin, where she saw with her eyes what we should not see. So I've had to work through that, and I'm still working through it. He's always bringing me back to points of that, reminding me that I fear the enemy more than I fear the Lord. And sometimes it's, okay, I trust you, but that's still scary. Yes. Let's talk about it.
Kainoa was on vitamins for his ADHD, and we would go to bed, we'd give it to him, and then afterwards, later, don't give a kid vitamins before they go to bed, FYI. Anyways, we'd do that, give him his vitamins, and then I'd take him to bed, and we'd read our little books and sing songs and stuff like that. This one night, he said, "Did you grab my foot?" I said, "No." He said, "Something just grabbed my foot." And I was like, okay, no, you're okay. And then we get him to sleep. And then another night, he said that he could see a witch's face in that room in the dark. And he described the witch. And I didn't see it, but I know that something was there. And so, bam, the lights came on, hands went in the air. Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, I pray that if there's anything and everything that is not of you, leave this house. And we did that several times. And it just kept coming back.
When one leaves, it comes back with 7. Yeah. We had an experience, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just Jesus working through you, but me and my brother have this thing with feeling things. And I remember we were at the house by Skyview.
Oh, yeah.
And I was taking a nap, chilling, and a face popped up. And I got that same feeling walking past that room again, which was Kainoa's room. And I was pissed off. Because my room and my space was my space. And this is where I sleep. And you can play around in that playground next door all you want. But do not come into this room. This is not your domain. You've pissed me off. Now I don't care what you are, but I'm kicking you out. We're done. So I remember getting out of bed really pissed off. I grabbed my Bible and I ran into his room and I said, "What are you doing in here? Because what you're bringing in messed with me, and now I have a problem with it. Now it's not okay." And he was like, "Huh? What?" Said, "Yeah, something showed up. That's not okay with me." He says, "I felt something in here. I feel like it's walking behind me." Yeah, you let it in. You're doing that. But don't worry, we'll solve it. So I called my mom, and I don't even remember what I said, but I was essentially like, "Something is in here and we need to get it out. What do we do?" And you said, "It has to be the one to tell it to leave because you brought it in." And I can't remember what verse you gave you, but you said, "Open your Bible to this page or this verse." And I was like, "No, my Bible's open, but I don't care who brought this in. It's going to leave. I am going to get rid of this, no matter what." So I grabbed Kainoa's hands and we start praying. And I can see he kind of feels something. He's freaked out. I said, "You feel like it's behind you, right?" So he sat down. I grab his hands. And I just start praying. And it wasn't anything fancy. Just any unclean presence that is not of Jesus Christ needs to leave now. In the name of Jesus, it is not your dominion, nor do you have authority in this house. And I don't remember what happened really because I stepped back. Felt like the Holy Spirit stepped forward. And I tried to pull his hands away. And I squeezed him tighter. So that probably scared the living daylights out of him. But it left. After that, I remember looking right behind him where he was saying he felt something. And the only words out of my mouth were, "No mercy and no grace." Repetitively. Like, whatever you are, you have no mercy and you have no grace. You've lost it. Go back to hell. And that was the first kind of experience in that realm. I didn't have the Kainoa things. I didn't have the toilet seat closing. But yeah, what was that like for you?
It was frustrating because I didn't really know if Kainoa was just having some sort of hallucination or if it was an evil spirit or what it was. But then I was reading something, and I think it was on, I'm not sure what it was on, but I remember it saying, "Go through your kids' rooms if you have that kind of stuff." And there was a video game that, was it the Goat Simulator video game where they had to make sacrifices and stuff like that? Kainoa wanted a goat video game. And I'm like, "Oh, whatever." And it ended up being something where they had to sacrifice living things. And I think that may have been in his room at that time when we were dealing with the evil spirits. But yeah.
Was that the only time?
The spirit was there, like, it was there for a while. And then when we moved out, didn't that lady say it was haunted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that stuff. When this is the first time I'm really hearing about it.
Hearing about what?
The spirits.
Oh, Kainoa's?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He said something about a toilet seat closing at one point, but I didn't know the
We were in the bedroom,
depths of it.
me and your dad and Kainoa, and the toilet seat shut.
Yeah.
But I think Kainoa remembers a whole lot more than I do. But
yeah. But I wasn't aware of that, the depth of that. And then when we moved out, I got a text from the realtor. He said, "Hey, I don't know what you want me to do about this, but they say the house is haunted. I was like, you can't cancel a buy sell because of an evil spirit. But I got on the phone with my cousins and we opened our Bibles. And even from afar, we just prayed over that house. It's not there anymore, so I don't know what happened to it. But yeah, part of me wants to just ignore it because if I think about it, it gets a foothold. That's what Auntie Nana said. But really ignoring it is just giving it authority. Not accepting that it is there and telling it to leave is, you've allowed it in. You've allowed it to stay. And that doesn't just apply to evil spirits. That applies to people and to boundaries. By you not saying anything, it's communicating that it's okay.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, were there any Jesus moments? Big Jesus moments for you?
I think with mania, I have a tendency to get really close to God and His Spirit. And I may be even a little fanatical sometimes. Who would have thought? But so I know that I've had more Jesus moments being manic than not. I think it opens up a realm that doesn't open up as easily or readily if I'm not manic.
Yeah.
So what does mania look like? Mania looks like running 100 miles an hour in every direction and talking my husband's ear off from the time he gets off work until the time he goes to bed, and then not being able to sleep. I'll be able to take my sleeping pills and sleep for 4 hours, maybe 3 hours, and then I'm up. And then maybe if I'm lucky, I can go back to bed about 4 or 5. Oh no, I get up at 5. But so I'm not getting a lot of sleep, and a lot of times mania is made worse, or even you can even go into mania because of lack of sleep. And I've had so much lack of sleep and stuff that it just was getting worse. But I think I'm settling down a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, like today, so like I could be manic in one day and cry in one. Rapid cycling, I think is what they call it, where I'll go through those different, the mania and the depression in one day, or even 1 hour, or 10 minutes. It just depends. But hang in there. Hang in there. There's more for you.
Yeah.
I want to get the semicolon tattoo on the back of my neck, because to me that means the story's not over.
Yeah.
There's more to you than your mental illness. There's more to life than what you go through. There's people that I've been blessed to have in my life that have helped me through. And you're one of them.
Thank you.
And my husband, Chris, is also one of them. He will just ask me, what do you need from me? What can I do if I'm having an issue? What's going on? He's always there to ask and make sure I'm okay. And if I'm crying, he'll comfort me or whatever. He's just really been there for me in a way that no one else has.
Yeah. If you could sum up, I can't read the time. Oh, wow. Hour already. If you could sum up, and I have to preface this because it's the internet, this is not saying that all of your story is condensed into 1 minute or that any part of your story doesn't have value. But if you could condense your story and everything you've learned through the course of your life into 2 sentences, what would those be?
Don't give up. And find what anchors you. With me, it's Jesus Christ. It's my family. It's my friends. It's my routine.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for putting your heart on your sleeve. And thank Jesus for doing work. Until the next one. Bye.
Bye, Felicia.